Good morning, this is Ryan Bell from Old School Automotive at www.facebook.com/oldschoolbell. Today we're going to be doing an install of the dieselorings.com oil level gauge repair kit for this 97 F350 Powerstroke. It's got the typical oil dipstick adapter to oil pan flange seal is leaking, and this kit from Diesel O-Rings is supposed to be able to fix that oil leak without having to pull the engine or the oil pan. And we picked this up from Riff Raff Diesel Performance, and we're going to give it a go. You can see it comes with complete instructions. The kit, which includes a new nut, the rubber O-ring that goes on the inside of the oil pan, as well as the fiber gasket that goes on the outside of the oil pan between the oil pan and the new nut. It's got a new O-ring for the dipstick to go into the dipstick gauge adapter, and a little tube of sealant as well, and complete instructions. So anyway, we're going to get started on that, and hopefully this will give you a little help if you got to do the same repair. Alrighty, so this is the problem we're dealing with. Look at the bottom of the engine here. You can see it is just wet with oil, and the leak is coming from up in here. This is where the dipstick goes into the oil pan. And as the old saying goes, the shoemaker's kids go barefoot. This is my personal truck, and I haven't had time to fix it properly. So I've just had to smear it with RTV silicone. And as you see, that isn't exactly getting the job done. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and rip into this, which is going to involve pulling the starter. And we'll come back here as soon as we clean it all up and getting the starter out of the way. And you can see that, you know, there's some pretty good oil leaks going on there. So anyway, we're going to tear into it and get her cleaned up. Alright, as you can see from the instructions, step 1, disconnect the main negative battery cables on both batteries. And the reason for that is that on these trucks, the battery cable that goes to the starter is hot all the time. So we're going to go ahead and pull the negative cable off of both batteries, just so that we don't accidentally have an electrical arc or a short when we're taking that battery cable off. And it's also a great time to show off the heavy-duty military terminals and battery cables that we picked up from custombatterycables.com. They are heavy-duty, and they make this truck start real nice. Highly recommended. Okay, we got the starter pulled out, and we got the dipstick adapter all cleaned up. Scraped off as much of the RTV silicone as we can, because the more we get off now, the less chance, we're going to have to clean it up eventually, the less chance of any debris falling in the oil pan. As you can see, we also used a paint pen to put a little mark on the oil pan to show the orientation, and this just corresponds with the little notch in here. That way we can get the inner piece of the adapter lined back up properly when we bolt it all back together. Now the next step is we have to remove the dipstick itself from the dipstick adapter. It's just a little bolt up on a bracket on the engine side, and it just pulls right out, and there's an O-ring that seals it, and we're just going to toss the old O-ring because there's a new O-ring that's in the kit. So we're going to go ahead and pull the old dipstick, and then we're going to loosen the nut just a little tiny bit, and the brush that came with the kit is going to stab into the dipstick hole. It's going to go all the way in, so the bristles are all the way in on the inside of the oil pan, and that will give us a handle to hold on to the inside part while we deal with the O-ring and all that. And we're also going to tie a string or a piece of baling wire onto it so that if we do happen to drop it, we can fish it back out easily. We're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, I got the camera set up looking through the wheel well opening so you guys can see the the dipstick adapter a little better. But as you can see, we've got that wire brush stabbed in through the hole there, and I made sure to clean it really good so that when we pushed the brush in, we weren't pushing in any more dirt into the oil pan than we absolutely had to. And you can also see on the left there's a piece of baling wire that is tied to the brush. So worst case scenario, if we lose grip on it, we can fish it back out by using that baling wire. And additionally, the other end of the baling wire I tied to a 3/4 inch wrench, which will give some weight to the end of the baling wire so it won't go anywhere. But it's also small enough that the adapter nut and all the O-rings and stuff can go on and off over it. So anyway, the nut here is 2 inches. And I got my jumbo wrench. You may have to use an adjustable wrench if you have one that goes that big. Or maybe a set of channel locks might work for you. But since I had the big jumbo wrench, that's what I'm going to use. Because if we've got the right tool, we're going to use it. And at this point, we just need to remove the old nut so that we can test fit the new one. And according to the instructions, a lot of times the threads will get boogered up because as the O-ring expands, it can put really major pressure on the nut and the threads as the expanding O-ring tries to push the adapter away from the nut, and it can stretch those threads. They do sell a set of thread repair files, but I didn't opt to get that because I'm hoping that my threads aren't too damaged here. So at this point we can get the adapter the rest of the way off. I'm just going to check and make sure that brush is not going to come out, and it's not. It's in there pretty solid. Okay, so I'm going to take the old nut off and just get rid of it. Alright, that's going to sit there real good. Now comes the fun part. You're going to use a set of picks, and we're going to try to get in there and fish that old O-ring out. I'm just going to leave this recording so y'all can watch. This may take a bit. Might take a bit of doing. Yeah, look at that, there's actually a little notch in the hole so this thing doesn't rotate. Isn't that cool? Okay. And I got really lucky on that. Wow, this O-ring is swelled up big. Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and get the old nut off and the old O-ring off. And next I got to take the the O-ring is swelled up. It's probably 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch larger in diameter than the proper O-ring. Now I'm going to take the new nut and test fit it to make sure that I can thread it on easily before we apply any Loctite or gasket goo or fool around with anything else here. So let's try the new adapter nut and see how this bad boy fits. Okay. I just want to make sure it's not cross-threaded. Feels like it's on pretty square. I'm just going to go real easy here with my big old wrench. Alright, well, I'm happy with that, the way that's going on, so I'm going to go ahead and back this nut off. And I believe the next step is we got to, well, next step is I'm going to clean up a little bit around the hole, and then we got to work that new O-ring in place. Yeah, I'm just going to go grab a wire brush real quick and clean up all the remaining little bits of goo and junk and hit this a little bit more brake cleaner just to make sure you've got a real nice sealing surface for the new outside fiber washer. Alright, back in a sec. Okay, here you can see, this is the new replacement O-ring. It's supposed to be this size. Here's the old one. This is how much it's swelled. Not only is it thicker, it's bigger in diameter, which caused it to push out of the groove in the dipstick adapter that was helping have it seal against the oil pan. So it was leaking like a sieve. So now we've gone ahead and I've used, if any of you guys are gun people, you probably got one kicking around. I used an M16 cleaning brush that I got from the mill surplus store. It was really great for cleaning up the threads on the adapter. Got the threads on the adapter surgically clean. I cleaned up the new adapter nut because we did thread it on the old oily adapter. I got all those threads really clean. Here's the new fiber gasket that goes on the outside. What we're going to do, we're going to fish the new O-ring into place on the adapter. Then we're going to coat the threads of the adapter liberally with the Loctite 515 flange sealant. We're going to coat both sides of the fiber gasket with the Loctite flange sealant, put it into place. Then we're going to add a little more sealant to the threads of the nut and maybe just a little bit to the backside sealing surface for good measure, and we're going to thread that bad boy into place and then torque it all down. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see if we can install that new O-ring. First I'm going to get a clean surface to lay out new fresh parts. I got a shop rag under here that'll do the job. Alrighty. As you can probably see, that's looking fairly clean up there on the adapter. And I'm glad I had the brush in like they send in the kit, because at one point I did end up knocking it down in the oil pan, and of course if you do that you're going to have to start all over cleaning it. Now I don't know if you can see this or not. Let's see if I can get a pick or I can use as a pointer here. This is the groove right here that the new O-ring is going to ride in. And yeah, you just want to make sure it seats in there nicely. Okay. Okay, so here we come with the new O-ring. And the book said, or the instructions said to install it dry, as that'll tend to help it stay in place while you maneuver this whole mess back together here. The instructions also said that if you get too much solvent in your oil, you're going to want to replace your oil, but I think I did a pretty good job of keeping my oil pretty much contaminant free. Alright, this makes me nervous. Okay. Okay, I think that's it. Right there. So now we're going to pull our fiber gasket over here. Actually, I take that back. First we're going to smear some of this flange sealant. A whole bunch of it all over. Apply liberally. So yeah, look at it. We got the whole tube. Let's use the whole darn tube. Okay. Now, apply some of the fiber gasket. I'm going to do that off camera here. Making sure I get a nice even coat of this flange sealant all over this nice fiber gasket here. Oh yeah, that's a nice amount right there. Okay, so now I'm going to feed it through my wrench the wire all the way up to that dipstick adapter, which I don't want to get away from here. See, it's a nice purple color. Okay. Alright, fiber gasket's in place. Now I'm going to use the last of my sealant. I'm going to go around the threads inside the nut here. And around the base, the sealing surface of the nut as well. Just to make absolutely sure we've got as much protection from leaks as we can get. These little slots, I'm going to pack them full as well, just because, right? You've got it, let's use it. Let's not take any risks, make any opportunity for that thing to leak at all. Okay, now I'm threading my nut over my wire. Alright, so far so good. Of course, it's not without its own hiccups. There. Well, this may have to come off for a second. I think I gotta, yeah, the O-ring fell out of place there. Wonder if a little sticky purple sealant would help hold it. We might have to go there. Oh, never mind. We got it right now. Okay. I don't think that's threading. It is not. Alright. Oh. Well, we're going to have to... I'm going to get some vice grips so I can pull on that a little harder. Back in a sec. Okay, we're back. You can see that I did manage to get the nut installed and tightened down. And I ended up not needing to use the vice grips to hold it. Turns out when the O-ring is seated properly, the adapter flange will pull out far enough that you can actually thread the nut on. And what it was doing, it was slipping, and apparently it does need to kind of stretch on over. It needs to stretch on over and grab onto that little flange that's on the inside. So what I ended up doing was I used some of the Loctite flange sealant, and I kind of glued it in place, and that held it, and then I was able to just pull the flange out and screw the nut on, no problem. Now the next step that we've got to do is I'm going to go ahead and install the new O-ring on the on the dipstick tube here. And that's just a simple matter of sliding it on over the dipstick tube. It goes right in between these two little grooves here. And you lubricate it with engine oil, and I've just got a little bit of leftover oil from the last oil change. I'm just gonna dip my finger in it, wipe it on there, and then we'll stab it in from the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera. Okay, kind of looking up from the spring perch here. All right, I got that the dipstick tube O-ring all lubricated. First thing I gotta do though, of course, I gotta crawl underneath, and now that I'm sure that I'm not doing anything else on this, I'm gonna pull that brush out of the dipstick adapter so we can get the dipstick back in. Alright. We're very near completion. The instructions say to torque this nut to 40 foot-pounds, and since I don't have a torque wrench that'll go as big as a 2-inch, I just went with the old educated elbow, and I tightened it up enough until I just wiggled the adapter back and forth. I kept tightening it until it wasn't loose anymore. I could feel that O-ring pressing against the oil pan. And if you had any worries that this brush was going to pull out, this should make you feel a little better. It's a heck of a time to get this little bugger out of here. It doesn't help the fact that it's a really awkward position. Oh, and the little ring is just a little too small to get your fingers in very well. I can't even tell if I'm making headway in this or not. Come on, baby. I think it's coming out. There we go. Well, I don't think I had to worry about getting that baby lost in there. That's good. Alrighty. Well, the brush should have done a nice job of cleaning out any crud that was left in there. Let's get that dipstick and put it back in its home. If I could see what I'm doing, that would help. Alright. Now before I seat that home, I'm going to go ahead and climb up top and make sure the dipstick is where it needs to be. And yeah, that's in the right general spot there. Alright, so I'm going to climb back down. Let's work that bad boy back into its home. Oops. There we go. That's all there is to it. Now I just got to reconnect the bracket on the top that holds the dipstick in place, reinstall the starter and the starter cable, and we're done. That's pretty much it. So, I don't know, for right around 50 bucks, so far, that kit seems to be a great alternative to pulling the engine just to get at the oil pan to fix that oil leak. Or the other option would be the billet adapter, in which case you'd have to remove the nut and you'd let that centerpiece drop into the oil pan and live there for the rest of its life. Which, they say it's fine, but that just makes me a little bit uncomfortable. So, we'll finish buttoning this back up off camera, and we'll give it a road test here for a couple days and give you an update and see how it all holds out.